It had been a busy day at Nikoli Corp. IT were going mad, systems were going down left and right, tickets were coming in from every direction. No one knew what was happening. There was the old guy down in the basement. Everyone called him a dragon. Really, he was just the CEO's gopher. But he was there, and he had his various helpers, the nutkins, who he had squirreling around, doing lots of little side tasks for him. But even he didn't know the truth of the reason he was down there. Abraham was actually the core of the machine. The tickets came in, he solved them, the tickets and the reports went out. But all of the reports were collated. There were numbers, there were bits, there were ties to the pain, the agony, the despair, frustration and depression caused by problems with IT. Whether it was on the side of poor Abraham and his squirrels, or whether it was the people putting the tickets in. Abraham wasn't the world's nicest. There was a reason he was called the dragon. He was grumpy, he was awkward, but he hated the users. Why couldn't they just think to turn on their computer? Why couldn't they realise that a reset would solve the problems? The number of times they said that they'd done something and he'd go upstairs to check and find their passwords on little yellow post-it notes that he took away. But still more came. The tickets were endless, and today was busier than most. What poor Abraham didn't realise was today was a big day for Nikoli Corp. All of the tickets, all of the frustration, all of the power that had also gone into the structure of the building was going to come to a head. The CEO was going to span it out, push it through the waves to all the users of his software. And that way, as their depression went, they would start picking up and reaching for some of his other products. And he could gain more power as they typed their short little messages on what he had originally wanted to call Holler, but now just called H, his messaging service. He smiled in his office, knowing that by putting this together, he could call down the power of the eldritch gods. He could put the pain and frustration as a beacon to show them the way, open up the portal and let them through. For he had been a member of the cult his entire life. And now was the day that it all truly came out. Nikoli Corp had been his baby, something he'd created early on, and he'd grown it using his parents' money from a small little egg into a large multinational. The initial summoning wasn't going to be global. This was the test. But if it worked, he could push it out through carefully built spaces around the world. through his personal satellite network. And then the old ones would return. What he didn't realise was a small group of his workers had started to wonder and suspect what was going on. They moved carefully through and looked, trying to find ways to get to his office. They wanted to know his plans. They knew there was something amiss. And as the sun went down that night, they broke back into the office to find out. The building was dark. It was a rough night, and there was a whistling outside as a storm built, and heavy winds seemed to spin round the complex of buildings, making a louder noise and almost creating a funnel going up. Rain clouds had been gathering overhead, and then they broke, forming a torrential downpour with the occasional burst of thunder and bolt of lightning going across the skies. Having got into the building just after the rain had drenched them, they were sat shivering in the cold. They could see their breaths. They didn't know why the building was so abnormally cold. They didn't know that Abraham, the dragon, was still down, working away in the basement, or that the CEO was in his office, a pentacle and circle round his desk with candles, and several of the senior board performing a dark ritual. The CEO had sensed the penetration to the building. He knew that there was something there that shouldn't be. And saying some silent prayers to the old gods, he called forth monsters to fill the grounds and keep them protect. They move carefully through, looking, knowing that there might be cameras, knowing that if they got caught, they could be fired, but wanting to know what was the actual situation. Who were they working for? What did he want? As they moved, the floor creaked, the storm raged on, the rain hammered against the windows, making the sound inside the building painful. They looked nervously at each other, wondering if this was part of it. Starting off, they headed down the stairs, moving to where the large door for the basement was. Finding it locked, they went, pulling. One of them snuck off, found a large fire extinguisher and smashed it against the door handle, enabling them to open and start down. The upper building had been dark, but flashes had come through the window to lighten it. The stairway was pitch black. It was almost so black it absorbed light. Nervously, they started making their way down. They'd never been down into the depths of Nikoli Corp. But they had their torch. The beam didn't go as far as it should. and there seemed to be all sorts of cobwebs. They thought they heard a scuttering behind them upstairs. Turning, they closed the door, hoping that that would prevent anyone from coming down behind them. The servers, as well as main IT support, was down there, and they knew that they preferred cold. But as they went, they could see their breath. They could feel the chill. But the chill went more than just on the outside of them. It went in deep to their core, chilling them almost to the root of their soul. There was artwork that was strange and disturbing on the walls, of unusual creatures and weird far-off lands, all with a strange orange tint. Carefully, they crept down, the light coming to the bottom. They could hear a scurrying, the scuttling of the squirrels running round for Abraham, and the tapping as he finished his work. As they got to the bottom of the stairs, suddenly they saw a shadow seem to coalesce in the right. Poor Abraham was part way in, turned and looked as this creature formed from the shadows, black and dismal, long pointed fingers, but a shape that was hidden in darkness. One of the explorers screamed as Abraham turned and started shaking. Two of the squirrels, braver than the others, looked up, saw it, and went charging in its direction. The hands just swept out, and there was just a brief splash of red filling the world. As it settled, the squirrels were gone. Abraham was now sat shaking in his chair. He looked at the dark thing, reached down and pulled out a can of air freshener that he kept carefully. As the creature moved towards him, he pulled his lighter out, struck it, and struck the air freshener, putting out a gust of flame. Something was strange in the air, because though it would only put out normally a small spurt designed to scare it off, this extended like a flamethrower, almost as though it was the flames of his namesake, the flames of a dragon, and it went forward, burning. The flames caught some of the various tickets that had come down in paper form round the room, and they started to ignite. Heat suddenly started coursing back into the room as the creature fell back. The poor explorers looked terrified. Abraham looked at them and just pointed and yelled, "Run!" They turned and ran for the door, screaming. Flames continued, and Abraham turned, looking at the shadows, having lost all sense, and was just scattering his flames everywhere, shouting nutkins at the top of his voice. He'd lost it. He'd lost his mind. "For the night, for nutkins!" and sprayed. The basement was alight as the explorers scuttled out, but now they knew that something was happening, something more terrible. They had to get to the CEO. They had to get to the top. Moving through the building, watching every shadow, they moved out onto the main floor, realizing that they would have to take the long stairwell up the 40 flights to get there. As they did, one of the security cameras turned towards them, then almost seemed to gain legs as it dropped off, spun, dropping, landing on the floor. Around them they could see the other cameras, legs popping out of web cameras, legs coming out of security cameras. They ran for the stairs, looking, not knowing what to do, screaming as they did, hitting the door and shooting up the stairs as fast as they could. Quickly behind them, a little webcam scurried, trying to climb up, but the stairs were too tall. They bounded up, seeing several security cameras come through. As they did, almost a burst of light came out, twisting in orange colours as it hit the last person, burning them almost as the colour wrapped round and absorbed into them. They turned, their hair thinning, going into a pale yellow as they turned into an orange colour, almost like a zombie chasing after them. Luckily, whatever the creature was slow and none too bright as the rest of them surged up the stairs. They didn't know how they would make it up the huge distance, but adrenaline is a great thing. And they pounded. Behind them, they could hear the groans of the creature as it followed them, and the scuttling of the camera spiders. Further up, they came past a door. Out of the door, something else burst. It seemed to be made of a copier, its mouth opening, closing. It lunged at one of them, hitting them into the banister over the long drop, with the scream as they fell slowly to the bottom, and the crash as both the mechanical monstrosity and the poor explorer died. With two left, they ran, pounding up the stairs. 20 flights up. Now nothing had happened. They stopped for a breath. Seeing more fire extinguishers, they had an idea, both grabbing one each, one foam, one carbon dioxide. They looked, took breaths, and charged. They were exhausted when they made it to the top. They could still hear coming up the long stairwell, the noise of things coming up behind them. As they turned and opened to the penthouse floor where the CEO's desk were, several of the spider-like things were there. The first couple came, and the first guy came and stamped on one, stamped on another, as they crushed. A third one came, jumping onto their leg, hooking their claws in, almost biting them. They started to shake, shocked, a look of horror as light came up their bodies, light came out their mouths. They shook as though electricity and sparks came off them, smoke pouring off their body as the electricity surged through them. The other one turned, desperately turning the fire extinguisher onto them, but it was too late, and they collapsed, their face a mask of fear. Turning, running in, back through the main door, jumping from table to table. Various items of electronics seemed in the room to be trying to get to them, but he could see a strange light coming from the CEO's door. he charged as fast as he could, barreling into it, into the room, seeing the square-faced CEO of Nikoli Corp. As he came in, his mouth just smiled. "Welcome," he said. "We've been waiting for you." The look of fear as two hands grabbed the sole survivor from behind, catching his arms and pulling him in. Two others grabbed his legs and pulled him out across the pentacle in the floor. A large dagger was pulled. The final smile came across the CEO's face. "It's time." The dagger came up, plunged down, and for the last explorer, in a rage of pain and strange orange colours swirling through him, the lights went out. As he went, he realised he had failed, and that everyone in the town was now going to pay for his failure. There you go. I think I got everything in. I know I got Nutkins, I know I got your dragon in there, and being IT support at the bottom, and the bits biting them. What did you think? Did you like it?
Yes.
There was a nice yes, and yes, there was a lot of laughter. I've got no idea what my wife was laughing at, honest. You didn't make it easy, but I got it in there. Anyway, anyone who's lasted this long, thank you. Please, if you haven't already, click subscribe, go to the bell, click all, that will tell you when we've got new stuff coming up. No, it wasn't, Tootie. Really, no, it wasn't. Give us a like if you liked it. Tootie's going to up his game for next time. I'm scared. There's a Patreon. Eventually, there will be YouTube memberships which will give you access to Discord. Discord, we have a group called the Eldritch Order where you can help as we grow, start to put ideas and frameworks for these together, which is what the plan is longer term. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed it. Hello to the people that just joined. If you're joining from this point, I'd go back to the beginning or about 10 minutes in. 12 probably. If you just want the story, if you want to hear everything else running up. If you keep giving me nice good ideas like that, I can keep these more regular. The more you give me, the easier it is for me, the more it gives me to work with, and the less I have to desperately cut ideas while I'm trying to do it. But it was fun, it was really enjoyable, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Bye for now.